Wall Street closes lower a day after Jerome Powell's comments on inflation and growth. The Nasdaq loses 60 points while the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones end below the flat line. Stocks in the Asia Pacific are mixed as the US economic uncertainties continue to linger. The GIFT Nifty is also indicating a flat start for our own markets. Crude oil prices have risen 1% after the United States issued new Iran-related sanctions and renewed tensions in the West Asia, countered by the strength in the US dollar. Meanwhile, the gold prices have eased after a record run on safe haven demand. And finally, the suspense over Rajiv Jain's role at Bajaj Finance is over as the company has elevated him to the post of vice chairman for a 3-year period starting the 1st of April. In an interaction with CNBC TV18 earlier in the week, Chairman and Managing Director Sanjeev Bajaj had said that Rajiv Jain remains very committed to the business. In another major deal announcement, Manappuram and Bain Capital have announced a $1 billion deal where Bain will acquire up to 42% stake in Manappuram. Bain will hold joint control with existing promoters, while existing promoters will hold 28.9% stake post this deal. It promises to be an action-packed Friday, and we will bring you all the updates on Power Breakfast right here on CNBC TV18 in the Mumbai News Center. I am Hormuz Fataki. I wish you all a very good morning as well. Let's take a look at how the Asian markets are faring at the start of the final trading day of the week, and it's a slightly mixed to a negative picture. The Hang Seng continues to see a bit of underperformance over the last 2 trading sessions after the run that it has had initially. The Taiwanese index too trading with cuts of around 0.3%. The Hang Seng is also, as I mentioned, down around 0.5%. The Nikkei though has resumed after a trading holiday after the inflation figures came out in Japan that were lesser than the figures in January, and 0.5% gains there for the Nikkei, and the Kospi too trading just below the flat line. So a mixed to a slightly negative picture emerging from the Asia Pacific screen. Pull up the GIFT Nifty as well. That will give you an idea of how our own markets are likely to start off, and after a 4-day run, the implied open is suggesting a slightly quiet start for our own markets, but there is of course plenty of stock specific activity that we'll keep an eye out for over the course of the show. But shifting focus to Wall Street, then it was a flat close, as you could see on the screen, indices ending around the flat line as economic uncertainties continued to weigh. The Dow Jones on the flat, it looks flat but closed around 300 points off the lows of the day, and the tech heavy Nasdaq also ending around 0.3% lower. Now, Double Line Capital CEO and founder Jeffrey Gundlach's comments on Scott Bessent taking on cutting government spending is a necessary detox for the economy, and he also added that he fears that there is a 50 to 60% chance of a recession in the US. Listen in.
Cutting $100 lousy billion out of the potentially out of the government budget is being met with hysteria, as if that's even a drop in the bucket. I mean, it's nothing. So we need to cut a lot more than that if we're going to get to a true detox. So I don't know if that can happen, because I think the cutting will weaken economic growth, which may lead to a counter response. It's one of the problems when you get yourself in one of these vicious circles that we've got ourselves in. But I do think the chance of recession is higher than most people believe. I actually think it's higher than 50%.
Now, Moody's Analytics' chief economist Mark Zandi agrees to the Fed chair Jerome Powell's comments on waiting to see how the policy changes play out, whether to tighten or to ease the policy. Listen in.
Fed officials don't know how this is all going to play out. And it's not, Frank, it's not just about the tariffs. It's about other economic policy. It's about the DOGE cuts to jobs and to funding. It's the fiscal policy. There's a lot of discussion about tax and spending. There's the Treasury debt limit coming up, and that goes to some of their decisioning around winding down their tapering. So there are a lot of moving parts here. And given that, I think it's wise for them to just sit on their hands and wait and see how this plays out a little bit. But you can see the damage that's accumulating. The risk is that something comes undone here, and you can hear from those business leaders, and it's across the board. They're very nervous and worried that if this continues, the trade war continues down the path it feels like it's going down, and the uncertainty around other economic policy remains in place, it's going to do real damage and ultimately will result in them getting off their hands and cutting jobs and investment and pushing us into recession.
On to our final global market update then, and take a look at how the European markets ended overnight. It was a red screen across the Atlantic as well in Europe. The DAX was the underperformer, almost 1.25% gone there. The CAC also ending almost 1% lower. The FTSE was absolutely flat after the Bank of England left policy rates unchanged yesterday and also warned of slowing growth and higher inflation, similar to what the Fed had mentioned. There was also the Swiss National Bank that came out with a 25 basis point rate cut, again on expected lines. So a negative handover coming from the European markets as well. But that's all we have on the global markets front. But how will all of this overnight cues impact our own markets? Our research team joins in with how the trade setup looks like, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and of course the setup on the F&O side of things. Vamakshi joins in first up to get all the market cues we need to watch out for today. Vamakshi, good morning. It's a 4-day rally. Bulls will look to end the week on a high.
Absolutely, Hormaz. Bulls are marching on in the month of March so far. The market has gained for the 4th straight day, which is the longest gaining streak in the last 2 months. The Nifty has closed just below the 23,200 mark, and the sensex has actually risen to somewhere around 76,350. It was HDFC Bank, Bharti Airtel, Reliance, Infosys, as well as TCS, which were some of the top contributors to the Nifty. As far as the triggers are concerned that drove this up move, keep in mind that the Fed's steady rate cut outlook, there was no change out there, so that sort of buoyed sentiments. The FIIs too turned net buyers yet again, purchasing shares worth almost 3,239 crores. When we look at the broader markets, this is interesting because the broader market so far had been outperforming the benchmarks. But in this trading session yesterday, it was the broader markets that were actually underperformed the benchmarks. The mid-cap index saw an uptick of 0.6%, while the small-cap index was up 0.7%. All sectoral indices ended in the green yesterday. This charge was led by oil and gas, auto, FMCG, as well as IT. As far as the US markets are concerned, they ended in the red. All 3 indices closed in the red. Therefore, it's a negative handover coming in from Wall Street. But as far as the cues to watch out for today are concerned, we'll be keeping an eye out on the FTSE adjustments. They will be taking effect. There will be 14 new inclusions in the FTSE India index. So on the back of that, keep an eye out on 361 WAM. We also have BSC, Blue Star, CDSL, and a lot of other counters that will be in focus. Apart from that, keep an eye out on defense stocks as well, and that is because the Defense Acquisition Council approved 8 defense proposals worth over 54,000. Keep an eye out on airlines as well. The air passenger traffic data also came through, so keep an eye out on Indigo, SpiceJet. As far as key levels are concerned, on the upside, the immediate resistance is at 23,300, 23,400. Downside, 22,900, 23,000 could act as a support as of now. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a flat start to the trading session.
Vamakshi, thanks a lot for that. Over to Vinny now. List out the stocks you need to keep an eye out for today. Vinny, good morning. Plenty on your list.
Absolutely. Let's start with Manappuram Finance. Manappuram Finance and Bain Capital have announced that $1 billion deal. Bain Capital is looking to acquire around 42% stake in the company. Deal is at a price of rupees 236 rupees per share, which is at a premium of around 10% to yesterday's closing price for Manappuram. So keep it out on that. We have Bajaj Finance that's going to be in focus as well. Now, Rajiv Jain has been elevated to the post of Vice Chairman for 3 years, and this is going to be with effect from the 1st of April 2025. Everyone was watching out for some news flow coming in on Rajiv appointment and his position in the company. So yes, this is something that we could watch out for, and we could see a bit of an up move on this front. Other than that, Hindustan Construction Company, HCC, that's in focus. Its JV has won an order of around 2,470 crore rupees, and this is from Tata Power. Container Corp, they have placed an order of 192 crores for a supply of 10 racks from Gatex India. Now, obviously, this increases the fleet size, so keep an eye on Container Corp. Hindalco, in further updates coming in for the plan to invest 45,000 crore rupees. This is going to be in the next generation high precision engineered products, so keep an eye on that. IT stocks also could see some bit of a focus today and some bit of maybe a mild pressure coming in here, as Accenture has reported its numbers on the back of that commentary that has come in, so keep an eye out on Accenture.
Indeed, Vinny, thanks. Keep an eye out on IT stocks, of course. Vinny, thanks a lot for that. The ADRs of Infosys and Wipro both ended around 2.5% lower overnight. Lastly, Sudarshan joins them with cues from the F&O space. Sudarshan, good morning. Another very good day for the bulls. What's the F&O data indicating today?
So after gaining for 4 straight days, we are expecting that we might start in positive territory even today, as GIFT Nifty is starting a flat start but with minor positive gains. Yesterday's session, we saw good part was that all the heavyweights have seen healthy gains, and that was the reason that you have seen benchmark indices outperforming broader markets. For today, GIFT Nifty is indicating a flat start. On the flows front, FIs have bought more than rupees 3,200 crore, while DIs have sold more than rupees 3,100 crore. In the index futures too, FIs have bought nearly rupees 3,000 crore. With this, they have added long positions of more than 6,800 contracts and also reduced short positions by 10,500 contracts. With this, FIs long exposure has been increased to 30%, which is highest since the last week of December 2024. On the option front, 23,400 call and 23,500 call have seen healthy additions, and on the put side, 23,000 put has seen addition of more than 57 lakh shares and 22,800 put has seen addition of almost 38 lakh shares. Important levels for Nifty. Support is around 50-day moving average of 22,972 and resistance is at 100-day moving average of that is 23,531. Stocks that remain in the band are IndusInd Bank, SAIL and Hindustan Copper. Two stocks that have entered the band are Manappuram Finance and Polycab.
Keep an eye out on all of them. Sudarshan, thanks a lot for that. Take a short break. On the other side, we put the spotlight on the new deal signed by gold financier Manappuram. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, Manappuram will be in focus today as Bain Capital has agreed to buy an 18% stake via preferential issue of shares and an additional 26% via an open offer. Sudarshan is now joining in with the contours of this deal. Sudarshan, tell us more.
So after hearing for several months and weeks, finally the deal of Manappuram Finance is announced. And now first talking about the deal headlines, it's the Bain Capital which is going to acquire up to 42%, nearly 42% stake for a deal of more than $1 billion or say more than rupees 10,000 crore. Now, the deal is being done at rupees 236 per share, which is at a premium of 10% to yesterday's closing price and at a premium of nearly 30% if you take the average price of last 6 months. So now what is the deal contours? In the first part, Bain Capital is going to acquire up to 18% stake and that is valued at around rupees 4,400 crore. And now this would be done via both equity and warrants and in an equal proportion, and that is 9.3 crore each. In the second part, Bain Capital will be making open offer to acquire up to 26% stake, and the price for this also open offer is also rupees 236 per share. The completion is expected around because allotment of warrants will be made in 4 to 18 months. So once the allotment will be done for the warrants, then Bain Capital will be making open offer. Now regulatory approvals that are required for this deal are RBI, CCI, RDI and stock exchanges. Also, apart from this deal, company has also announced that Asirvad Microfinance, if you remember, had filed for an IPO. Now Asirvad Microfinance will withdraw its DRHP for the IPO. And holding, if you talk about the shareholding, currently promoters hold 35.25%. Once the deal is completed, existing promoters holding will be 28.9%, while holding of Bain Capital will be in the range of 18 to 41.7%. It can rise up to 41.7% or say nearly 42%. So finally the deal is done, and it's a good deal because the deal is done at a premium of 10% to yesterday's closing price, and deal value is of more than $1 billion.
Oh yes, you keep an eye out on Manappuram. Of course, mind you, the stocks in the FNO ban, as Sudarshan just mentioned a few minutes earlier. So keep an eye out on that stock as well. Sudarshan, thanks a lot for that. In another major and a much awaited development, Rajiv Jain has been elevated as the Vice Chairman of Bajaj Finance for a 3-year period, while Anup Saha, the current Deputy Managing Director, will take charge as the new Managing Director effective from the 1st of April. Now, in an interview to CNBC TV 18 on the 18th of March, Bajaj Finserv's Chairman and Managing Director Sanjeev Bajaj had hinted at a possibility of Rajiv Jain being reappointed to a role in Bajaj Finance itself as his term comes to an end. Sanjeev told us that Rajiv Jain is fully committed to the group and the business. Listen to what he had to say.
So firstly, as I said, a board of both the insurance companies controlled by Bajaj has been running the business for over a decade. And there is going to be no change, I can tell you, on the ground. Day-to-day competitive activity continues, but there is going to be no significant change. As far as Rajiv Jain is concerned, we have a board meeting coming up later this week, and Rajiv is fully committed to the group and the business. And the board will evaluate, as we know his term comes to an end of March. The board is evaluating next steps, and you will hear about it soon.
Sanjeev Bajaj exclusive there to CNBC TV 18. Take a short break. Up next, we get you cues from the commodities market. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now getting you the latest on the Trump-related developments, we have Dia Eapen joining us in our special segment, Trump Watch.
In a move to decentralize education, President Donald Trump signed an executive order aimed at dismantling the Department of Education. This aligns with his long-standing goal to return the Education Authority to individual states and reduce federal involvement. In a bid to reduce reliance on foreign imports, President Trump is set to invoke emergency wartime powers to boost the U.S.'s domestic production of critical minerals, including coal, as part of a broader natural resources development effort. Trump also said he would soon sign a natural resources deal with Ukraine that would give the U.S. partial control over revenue from future resource extraction. The agreement fell apart late last month after a tense Oval Office meeting between Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Let's listen in to what he said.
Executive order to dramatically increase production of critical minerals and rare earths. It's a big thing in this country. And as you know, we're also signing agreements in various locations to unlock rare earths and minerals and lots of other things all over the world. But in particular, Ukraine, we're doing very well with regard to Ukraine and Russia. And one of the things we are doing is signing a deal very shortly with respect to rare earths with Ukraine, which they have tremendous value in rare earth, and we appreciate that.
Moving on, U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright stated that the U.S. could easily take the lead in operating a nuclear plant in Ukraine with very little problem should the political decision be made to do so. Meanwhile, when questioned about efforts for a Gaza ceasefire, the White House reiterated Trump's strong support for Israeli actions in Gaza, blaming Hamas for the attacks. Trump has also affirmed the crypto-supportive actions taken by his administration since he returned to presidency, reiterating his support for stablecoin legislation, saying it will help expand the dollar's dominance. Lastly, the White House reaffirmed that Trump will unveil big tariffs on April 2nd as part of the ongoing reciprocal trade escalation. That's all for today's updates surrounding President Trump's actions both domestically and globally. Back to you, Hormaz.
Dia, thanks a lot for that update. And Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the commodity cues for the morning. Manisha, good morning. What's on your radar today?
Morning, Hormaz, and thank you for that. Well, I'm still looking at copper prices now because the kind of run-up that we've seen in copper with 28% of gains in this year, it's trading very close to its all-time highs, perhaps a level that you could see breaching today itself. Well, traders are directing or redirecting their shipments from Asia to U.S. ahead of potential tariffs that the U.S. administration has been talking about, and that has been taking prices much on the higher side. Well, barring copper, it is gold, which is also trading at all-time highs. Concerns on slow U.S. economic growth and inflation are supportive. And now the traders are pricing in a 25 basis point of a rate cut in the month of July when the Fed meets. So that also, in sense, it has been supporting the prices. A quick word on crude oil prices, and they are headed for a second weekly gain. There are fresh U.S. sanctions on Iran, and OPEC is planning for 7 members to cut output, and that in turn also seems to be supporting.
You need to keep an eye out on all of this. Manisha, thanks a lot for that. We call time on this edition of Power Breakfast for the final time this week. From me and the team that put this show together, thank you so much for watching. But there is a lot lined up, and Bazaar Morning Call will take you through all of that.